Hello, and welcome to The Square Window, the podcast that transports us back to the golden age of kids' TV. Each episode, I'll be chatting with a special guest, and we'll be talking about a specific show from their youth that they loved. My guest for this episode is Dr.Steve Henderson, and the show that he's going to be talking about is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or if you're from the UK, Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, heroes in a half-shell, turtle power.
A big welcome to Dr. Steve Henderson, director and founding member of the Manchester Animation Festival, also editor and co-owner of Squiggly.com, the UK's largest online animation magazine and community. Steve has a PhD in animation archives and British children's television animation from Loughborough University, which makes him absolutely perfect to talk about a show from America.
Exactly. Well, it was a pleasure to be on the podcast and to be at the start of something new and exciting. You know, the Square Window is, and the idea of going through children's television and all these kind of favourites. You've got such a journey ahead of you, man.
I know.
Right
It's
here.
I'm really excited about it. Everybody's got surely at least one TV show from their childhood that they really look back fondly, and I think the litmus test was when I spoke to my mates about it, who Valley's boys who I never watched cartoons when I was a kid. I was out playing football all the time, but then within 2 messages later they were like, oh yeah, I remember Ulysses, I used to love Ulysses. Yeah, here we go.
It's this big unifier, isn't it? It's this
Yeah.
great unifier, and especially when it comes to our kids animation and stuff. You mentioned the kind of British children's television stuff that I did at the PhD, but back in 2012 when we started the podcast, the first podcast, we had that fantastic news that those tax breaks had come into the UK. And the reason that those tax breaks, which have evolved since then, came into the UK at that time is because all the animators and directors and studio heads and everyone gathered together to form a group which is now Animation UK. But they used the threat, this wonderful threat with government, to say, listen, if you don't look after these beautiful kids shows, then they're going to go abroad. They're going to go around the world. You're never going to have another Bob the Builder or Wallace and Gromit or all this kind of stuff. And it's just the mere thought of taking all that away and everything that comes with that. You know, the guys in the pub that you just mentioned there, whose childhoods were enriched, whether they care to admit it or not. Enriched by all these shows. It's just animation has such a power to it.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Bradford, in the north of England, so up until about the age of 12, then I moved to Barnsley. So it's kind of like out of the frying pan and into the fire, sort of in terms of kind of like social economic upbringing. You think Bradford's bad? We're going to move to Barnsley. Oh my God. Anyway, yeah. So this rough and violent upbringing really sort of brought a love for rough and violent kids TV shows, I think. Is probably. But kids TV was such a big deal for me as a kid. We had a video cassette player, and for any kind of young people listening to this, video cassettes were these kind of bricks made out of plastic that we used to keep all our TikToks on, and all these they're a bit longer than TikToks, but and I remember I think I was about 3 years old, and we used to. I could operate the video player better than my dad, and so when you hear people now saying, "Oh, just pass the iPad along to my kid and they'll make it work for me," or whatever it is, it was exactly the same when I was a kid. But I knew exactly what I wanted to watch, and we had all these VHSs of like the old MGM cartoons, and we had Woody Woodpecker and the Fleischers and things like that, and then we had stuff that we'd taped off the telly as well. One of my most fondest memories was when somebody came and said that they recorded something off the telly late the night before of Channel 4. And I was young and innocent, but if I was a few years older, I'd have been like, "Whoa, yeah, let's get going." But it was War Story
Right.
by Peter Lord and Aardman. So we watched this uh, uh, War Story and The Wrong Trousers. So The Wrong Trousers, A Grand Day Out.
Right.
And so from then on, I was like, that's it. I want to be an animator. I want to work in
Awesome.
animation. I want to be, that's it. But around that, obviously, there were loads of things going on as a kid that kind of you couldn't help but in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. I think advertising was really hitting a stride
Yeah,
for,
of
for
course.
kids at that time. And you couldn't escape being advertised these shows that were absolutely everywhere. You had Transformers, you had He-Man, you had all these amazing shows. She-Ra, for the girls, obviously. That's how it worked when you were a kid. And but for me, the biggest and most popular thing was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles,
Yes.
as it was as a kid, because we had the sanitized version because Margaret Thatcher. Yeah. She took a lot of things away from us as kids, especially growing up in Barnsley. And I'm sure
Growing
the
up around
valley.
you
I'm
as
sure the
well.
valleys, yeah. And one of the things she took away was Michelangelo's nunchucks,
Yeah.
as well. So yeah, she wasn't very giving, and as a result, we've not been very forgiving, have we? But yeah, it's growing up in that kind of the turtles were absolutely everywhere. Turtle Mania was just this absolutely huge thing. There were other shows, the Real Ghostbusters and all these other things that where people had you either had the toys and you're obsessed with the show, or you're obsessed with the show and you had the toys. Either way, you had a mixture of the two, and they churned out the toys. It
Yeah.
was an
Yeah.
absolutely incredible rate of toys, particularly for the turtles. I remember having characters that they weren't in the show, and I would watch the show just to see where's this weird character that I've got, because I'd like to know what their backstory is.
Yeah.
It probably involves the use, but I can't play it too safe. I need to know. But I think the characters of the turtles themselves were so well kind of defined in a
Yes.
way.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were heroes in Half Shell, but they were heroes, but they were each had their own kind of foibles to them. They all had and it was there in the song right at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Let's show those creepazoids what turtle power's all about!
So by the time the episode started, even though the animation was absolutely diabolical and the acting and everything else leaves a lot to be desired when you watch it back nowadays.
I know.
But it was just all there for you as a kid. It was
Yeah.
just like, yeah, it was visual sugar. That's what it was.
100%. I think so. I was reading the other day. I was looking at, because it's been a long time since I've actually sat and watched an episode, but I had exactly the same feelings about it as you. That was definitely one of the defining shows of my youth. In terms of animation. But it was surprising, like you said, how well defined the individual characters were. And I didn't realize, because I had not come at it from the comic book angle. I'd never, I when that series, when the show first came out, I didn't know that it was a comic book show first. And I didn't realize that in the comics, how mature the comic was. And the fact that if it hadn't have been for the TV show, and the fact that to get it onto the TV they needed to dial down a lot of the sort of PG-13ness of the comic, that they all wore red bandanas, and they all they all had very similar characteristics, or it's just the only thing that was different was the weapons. And it was the TV show that defined them, and changed it, and sort of and made it more child friendly. And then obviously, like you said, the irony then of Mary Whitehouse taking all the cool aspects of it away from us.
Exactly. Oh, the original comics. I mean, obviously, I had no idea that these comics existed as a kid. I'm just watching this brightly coloured bunch of heroes, who are all kind of different personalities and all this kind of stuff, fighting, and not really doing an amazing job of it, but they're kind of muddling on, and this kind of but going back and looking at the comics, the original kind of like, you know, Laird Eastman comics, it was done as a joke. It wasn't
Yeah,
done with any kind of seriousness. It was supposed to be like a parody of Daredevil.
that's
And
right.
the original turtle, it looks more like a turtle, a really old and withered thing. They did a sketch of it, laughed their heads off, did a whole comic around it. And, you know, so when the turtles attack the Foot Clan in the comics, there's blood and there's gore, there's guts, there's, you know, decapitations, there's real, like, there's some real flavor to it. It's not
Yeah.
it's not exactly what you'd expect from the kind of 1987 onwards Turtles.
Yeah.
And I think that the 1987 onwards, or 1990 as it reached the UK, that we grew up with, is a real it's a real kind of showcase of that kind of 80s 90s Hollywood, or like, you know, showbiz kind of, oh, we love what you got here, we're going to change every aspect of it. You know, like that kind of, yeah. Oh, they're really violent, yeah, we love the violence, but we're not going to have any violence. You know, oh yeah, we love the bandanas, but they were going to change all of the bandanas. You know, and just every aspect of it kind of changes. There's this brilliant Bruce Timm's Batman the Animated Series, and I won't say too much about it because I'm sure somebody will pick Batman the Animated Series for this series. I hope so. I'm looking forward to it. But there's this brilliant in the making of book. There's this great page of Batman pushing the Joker out the window, and what they've tried to do in this one image is contain as many of the problems that they're not allowed to have in the show. So you're not allowed to show violence. You're not allowed to show kids in danger. You're not allowed to show guns. You're not allowed to show, people being impaled. You're not allowed to show broken glass. You're not allowed to show, people falling from heights. All these things that you're not allowed, and yet you have to make a Batman series. You know, it's just like, how do you do this? But they managed to do it. They managed to take all these fantastic stylish shortcuts and things, and it was pretty similar. You know, it was similar with the Turtles. They kind of lent on the Turtles as characters, as individual personalities. And as a kid, I was a massive fan of the Beatles, and I still am a massive fan of the Beatles. And if you watch like A Hard Day's Night, each of the Beatles is basically a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
Yeah.
You know,
I've never drawn the comparison before, but that's genius.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Let's assign them. You know, let's assign the Turtles to the Beatles. You've got obviously Michelangelo's Ringo. You know, there's no two ways about that.
Oh, Bud, I thought only Splinter could do that psychic bit.
You know, you got the quiet one. You could probably say, the quiet, technological driven one. You could say that's George, couldn't you?
Somehow stop the river, that would shut down the power stations.
Swell! We'll just round up 50 million beavers and ask them to please build us a dam.
Yeah. Your John and Paul at the top there with Leonardo, and Leonardo's probably Paul, I would say, and Raphael, the sort of hot-headed one's got to be John, hasn't he?
To stop it, we're the only hope the world has. Turtle power!
It's hard to say no to a guy like that.
It's gonna stick there.
Yeah, talking about the Beatles and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you might have devised the perfect podcast, Gareth. I've got to take my hat off to you.
Yeah.
This
is good. This is better than expected.
Yeah. But go on.
No, sorry, I was going to say, because again, that comic book to the cartoon comparison, I didn't realise the whole pizza thing was for the comic book, for the cartoon, not for the comic book. That and you were drawing the Daredevil comparison earlier, and that's good as well, because I'd not considered that, and then I just remember watching the episode recently, and they were talking about the foot, and I thought, oh, it's a bit like the hand in Daredevil. I wonder if that's if they consider that. And then, but it was a thing. They've got this massive Daredevil comparisons. Cause obviously the ooze and the stuff that blinded Matt. And Stick and Splinter. I'd not considered that. That's
there
genius.
You go. It's all there. Apparently, the in the TV series, the original episode, the turtles come about because this kid is walking through the street with a a bowl, like an old goldfish bowl, and he drops them, and lazily animated turtles land on the sensei who's living in the sewers.
Yeah.
That's how the turtles and Splinter originally come to be. But in the comic, there's this big thing about a truck crashing into the kid with the bowl, with the turtles and the ooze coming out of the truck, and everything else. It's a lot more kind of graphic and violent, and a lot more of a thing. But in that original panel, it's like Daredevil. It is Daredevil, but from a different angle, from a completely different angle. It's the comic wasn't there to take the world by storm. It was there just for a laugh, like all the best things are. All the best things that people kind of they do them for a little bit of personal fun, and people are like, well, I really enjoy this, and I think there's a sincerity to personal gags and personal fun. I think you find, like, the original Rick and Morty. If you watch the original Rick and Morty short film, I think it's done for Channel 101. There's a real raw energy to that, which certainly would not translate to TV series. So obviously it got adapted, thank God. But that sort of, like, that sort of immature energy that kind of sustains the show was present from the off.
And then the other thing I remember was April O'Neil in the comics was a lab assistant.
Yes.
And they decided that they wanted to make her more present in the show as the sort of proxy audience, the viewer into the Turtles' lives. So they brought April in, and Shredder was killed. Did they kill Shredder in the comic? I think.
I'm pretty sure early on he didn't last for very long, did he? And he was an adversary, but not for long.
Yeah, because he's now like he's an iconic villain. In any comic, in any cartoon series. It's like I would say he's probably top tier classic kids TV villain, up there with sort of Mumra and those sort of. But he's and he was I knew this a couple of years ago, but it blew my mind when I found out. Voiced by Uncle Phil from The Fresh Prince.
Yeah. And when you listen to it again, and it's like listening to a goofy Uncle Phil.
The soldiers will be mine to command again. Don't just stand there, you mutant morons. We must hurry.
One of the things that there's going to be, I'm sure, a driving force of this podcast is going to be nostalgia. And I ever say, like, nostalgia has this kind of it causes real damage in the world. But looking back nostalgically at things like this, it's so much fun, because when the fog of nostalgia is removed and you see the reality, like when you rewatch the show, you realize loads of things that it's like you're watching it in color for the first time, or you're seeing it from as an adult, and you're like, oh gosh, I didn't realize it was this bad, or I didn't realize it was that the voice acting was this terrible. There's the quality of the original series, at least they would not get away with it in this day and age. And you can tell that it's a lot of who are now legends in the world of voice acting, and who were really, it was obviously their first gig, but they were like Rob Paulson, people like that, did a fantastic job, but you could tell it was an early years kind of thing for him, and that he was ready to take the world by storm. But yeah, that kind of nostalgia, when you take away the nostalgia and you watch the show for its kind of as it was, it's a great lesson in nostalgia, and it's a great lesson in the kind of reality and things like that. And you watch it and you think to yourself, God, this what was it that I loved about this as a kid? What was the? But then you carry on watching, and you're like, yeah, I know exactly what it was. It was that phenomena, that huge kind of, like, the fact that you could grab a few mates in the playground, and you could just, then you'd be the Turtles, and you'd just go and find somebody who would be Shredder or Krang or something like that, or Bebop and Rocksteady, and you'd go like, yeah, we're the Turtles, and they'd be like, what? And like, you might need some negotiating, so you had to swap roles. No, you be Ringo. No, but like, you swap roles and stuff, and then And then you'd like have a fight in the playground, and then the teachers would come up and
Well, that was going to be one of my questions actually, because I was going to say, was it a slow burner for you, or was it immediately like you were hooked first episode? And because it was originally created as a 5-part miniseries, wasn't it? And I think from what I understand, when they screened it in America, it took 2 or 3 airings of the 5 episodes before it got a sort of life, and before it got a good viewer base, and then they decided, I forget the name. I think the name of the toy company was Playmates.
Yeah.
And they wanted they wanted to make the toys. They wanted to move into action figure production, because I think they'd been making dolls and things like that, and they was getting lucrative around the early 80s because of Star Wars and because of Masters of the Universe and things like that. So they decided, oh well, before we give the money for this license, let's test the water by making a 5-part animation. I mean, I would love that now. How many companies do that now? I mean, we're in a we could do with a bit more work like that. It's like, oh yeah, let's just make a TV show. Yeah, fine. Yeah.
No, nowadays it's you have to self-fund this
Yeah.
and put it on YouTube, and then get 100 million followers and likes,
Yeah.
and then we'll consider giving you £20,000.
Yeah.
It's similar sort of.
Those were good days.
That's it. Yeah, you hear so many amazing stories about television series back in the day. Cosgrove Hall, based in Manchester, they were obviously funded by Thames Television, and they would go to these parties at Christmas time, and the head of Thames Television would be there, and Brian Cosgrove would go up and they congratulate, congratulations on your success with Duckula or Danger Mouse or whatever, and what are you going to do next was the question. It wasn't like, can you give me a pitch? Yeah. It was like, what do you want to do next? Because there was trust. There was a kind of an idea that they could do it. And Brian would say something like, and he says it in his book. I quite like The Wind in the Willows. And then the head of Thames' wife was there, and she went, I love The Wind in the Willows. And so that obviously he goes, yeah, sold. There you go. And that's how Wind in the Willows came about. And it's that kind of age of trust, I think, that's kind of disappeared because. And I suppose it might be as a result of the phenomena that was things like Turtles and all these kind of huge shows, because everybody wanted these huge shows. But the lesson is that these shows only came about because of, they came about not through some kind of refined, processed and, surveyed and filleted and changed. They came about because they had this raw energy. You look at anything that's huge, the Turtles, the Simpsons. That was Matt Groening had 10 minutes in a waiting room for James L. Brooks. He came in and said, "What do you want to do?" And he was like, "Well, I want to do a show about my family." And then he just spent the time speaking about his family and ad-libbing. And then it became the biggest thing in the world. But it became the biggest thing in the world because of the second thing you need, which the Turtles had through its toy promotions and things like that, which was the thing that got me first. But the second thing it needs is that promotion. And The Simpsons landed on Fox, and Fox were doing everything to promote itself because it was brand new. And so that's why The Simpsons became big. But nowadays, I think, or at the time that people believe that success doesn't come from trusting creatives to create shows or assisting them by showing them off, by giving them huge promotional budgets and making sure they get in front of people's eyeballs. And that's missing nowadays. And that's, you look back at all these success stories, and that's what they all had in common, is that kind of, that two-way thing. I'm sure there's more elements to it than that, but, if you're boiling it down. For me, getting into the Turtles, to try and answer your question, sorry, mate. But to get into I got into Turtles because of the merchandise.
Yeah, sure.
And I if you'd have asked me 3 years ago, I would have probably said, I watched the show and I enjoyed the show as a kid. But I've seen it live for me now. I've got a 3-year-old. He's nearly 4. They're nearly 4. And they would come home from playgroup and they would talk about characters. They knew the Paw Patrol before they'd seen a single episode because they talked to each other in they barely talk, and they're pointing and doing the Paw Patrol characters. And my mother bought them a few pairs of Paw Patrol socks, and so they had Chase and Marshall and all the rest on, and it was a few months go by, and they're still talking about Paw Patrol. They're coming home. Every time they go past a piece of merchandise, they point at it and go, Paw Patrol, Paw Patrol. We think, you know what? Should we just put an episode on, see what they think of it? And we put an episode on for them. And this is when they were about 3, so they're adorable. The episode comes on. They're watching it, like glazed expression, and then their eyes light up.
Yeah.
And they looked down at their feet, pointed at the telly, and went, "My socks!" They thought they'd made a TV show about their socks. I was like, and I think, I think obviously I was a lot older when I got into Turtles. I wasn't 4 or 3, I should say. But obviously I used to go around to the same friends who got me into The Simpsons. We used to go around to the Brown's house, and Simon was this. He had everything. If he showed an interest in something, his mum and his dad would
Matthew
get him.
Jenkins.
There you go. I'm sure we all have a Simon Brown or Matthew Jenkins. Whatever it is, they're always like your dad's mate whose son gets what he wants and everything. But you'd go around and you'd play with like the Turtles sewer set. Which is less disgusting than it sounds.
Yes,
you play with all the figures, you play with all that kind of stuff, and he'd have everything, and that's how you discover it. You discover it through the toys and through him saying, "Will you be this character?" And then you get a toy thrust in your hand, and you'd be like, "Well, who's this then? Who's this orange one? Well, that's Michelangelo. Okay, no, you're doing Michelangelo wrong. He says cowabunga. Oh, does he? Okay, all right, I'll say cowabunga a lot then." And you through play, you grow an affinity with the characters, and then you watch it on the TV, and you're like, "Oh wow, this is brilliant!" And then you take it into the playground, and then it just becomes your life, and it becomes this huge thing. I told this story on the Squiggly podcast probably back in 2012 about obviously I've got loads of memories, and they all come from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles merch. Memories of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Not every memory I've ever had is about. But
May not
yeah,
far off.
It's not too far off. Yeah, about 40%. But yeah, I obviously growing up in early 90s Bradford, we for Christmas one year I got given a costume. Now it wasn't much of a costume that you would expect nowadays. You'd expect it to light up, and you expect it to almost wearing an animatronic or whatever.
Padded.
Yeah, exactly. But it was an apron, basically, and it was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles apron, a mask that you could wear, like a plastic mask, the type of plastic mask where the elastic used to hurt your ears, and the mask would snap, and then it would catch your skin. Exactly the sort of quality that your parents would lovingly buy for you as a child. And then I think it might have had some like elbow pads and knee pads as well. So it was like, and then you put them on, and you are a turtle. But it also came with Raphael's size, plastic versions of Raphael's size. And it was, there was like a costume day at school. So everyone had to be in fancy dress for school. And obviously there's only one thing I'm going as Raphael. I've got the gear, I'm ready to go. And within like 2 minutes of attending school, I had the size confiscated because I kind of went, now obviously I didn't know any better, but like, one of the parents, there was a pram with a kid in it, and I decided to show off to this kid on my sweet ninja moves, like whoosh, 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 whoosh. And I might have got a little bit too overexcited and a bit too close to the pram with these weapons, effectively. And they were hollow plastic. I wasn't going to cause any damage. And besides, he had 2 eyes. Anyway, no, but he's like, but straight away, teacher did a beeline. And they're like, "They're mine now. You can have these back at the end of the day," and then put them in the confiscated drawer with all the real weapons. Because, like, remember, I grew up in Bradford, so there was guns and knives and proper ninja throwing stars in there. That was my earliest merch.
You were saying, it's like Turtle Mania, and I remember I would have been, say, like 87, 88, I would have been 10, 11, and like literally like 89 would have been Batman, the Batman movie, and that was chaos. Batman was everywhere. But Turtle Mania was I would say as big, if not bigger than that, because it was everywhere. Wherever you went, there was clothing, there were toys, there were posters, there were puzzles. I don't remember there wouldn't have been a McDonald's around here then. It would have been a Wimpy.
Yeah.
But and there wasn't like the tie-ins with like restaurants and things like there are now. But I mean, that's every TV show ever now. Anything. Even Winnie the Pooh is literally everywhere you look, whatever shop you go and do these days. But back then, it was unknown. Like there were big shows before Turtles, Masters of the Universe, but. And I just don't remember there being Masters Universe clothing and T-shirt. The Turtles was everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember Transformers being everywhere. I remember like everyone had Transformers, but they had the toys. I don't remember people having the Transformers costumes. Obviously, they'd be more complex, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
but but they had the videos, they had the toys, they had all that. I remember Care Bears being big. I remember My Little Pony being big.
Yeah.
But I don't remember the show. I don't remember them going hand in hand. But Turtles was absolutely huge because you had the success of the series, and then obviously the Hensons did the animatronic feature film.
Yeah.
And I saw that earlier on, and it was made for 13 million dollars. And then it took back $202 million. Like that translation, that's wild.
It is. We rewatched that. I put it on the weekend, and the twins were playing their games, and they were just kind of casually looking up every now and then. What's that? What's that, Dad? That's cringe. It's like yeah. But it's actually quite a good film. Even now, 30 plus years later, it stands up.
Yeah,
I never really gelled with the later movies where they look quite they don't look like the Turtles, I remember, but these look like the Turtles.
Yeah.
And the animatronic stuff was really well, and they moved like the Turtles. They did such a good job with that film. And
were you talking about the Michael Bay one, or are you talking about the Secret of the Ooze and
the Michael Bay one, the Michael Bay films? I don't know. They just looked too. They didn't look like Turtles. Not that I mean, it's still a turtle doing ninja moves. What does that look like? I suppose, but they didn't look like the Turtles that I knew then. And they didn't seem like teenagers. They just seemed like And I think that's where they've struggled with a lot of the stuff since, in that they've not got across the fact that these are kids. I know teenagers. I've got a couple, and they
you got some on the way.
I got some on the way who are practically teenagers now, and I don't think they nailed that until the more recent, fully the CGI animated film. I forget the name of the film. The Mutant Mayhem, is it?
Oh, Mutant Mayhem was fantastic, and I love the idea that what they did with that is they made them teenagers. That was such a perfect move, and like the idea of Donatello's voice hasn't broken yet. It's still squeaky, and like they are teenagers. They're not. And with that, you feel that they're going to make mistakes, and they're gonna sort of mess around, and they're not like combat ready adults. Which I kind of got, like, when I was watching the show as a kid, the 1987 series, I didn't think I was watching teenagers, even though it was in the title. I thought they were adults. They looked like adults. They were tall. They were, and it wasn't as tall as April or whatever. She was a proper adult. But like, I didn't think that they were teenagers because they all sounded like 30-year-old blokes.
Yeah.
So for Mutant Mayhem to come around and undo all that kind of stuff, that Michael Bay making these kind of big sort of tank creature, things, which, an absolute achievement in terms of VFX and all that kind of stuff. But don't do it with a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. If you want to make a film, make your own. Everyone else made their own version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You've got the Biker Mice from Mars. You've got
Yeah.
Street Sharks. You've got all these kind of things that went with it. Make your own Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
right.
Michael Bay.
Yeah, back away. I've still got beef with Michael Bay over Transformers. So
Yeah.
don't get me started on that. This will turn into a rant podcast.
I'll save that for your Transformers episode.
Yeah,
I think
that's coming. I have got somebody for that.
Well, yeah. Well, let's have a section in this one dedicated to why Michael Bay did a terrible job with his franchise killers. I just feel that when people don't get it right, when people try and, I know it's been reinvented so many times, this show, and it's changed so many times, but when some people try to distill it to find out what's successful about it, and I think that, you know, the ones that don't really work out too well are the ones that have done that. You know, what makes it a success? Well, let's make it a success by finding these bits. But those that look at it and go, what makes this fun? What makes this real? What makes this you know, exciting? Rather than, you know, what's going to sell merch or what's going to, you know, look cool.
Yeah.
Which is Michael Bay's major crime, is he just wants things that look cool.
Yeah.
And all of his films look like adverts for aircraft carriers, you know. But yeah, I think like Mutant Mayhem really nailed it. They were like, well, you know, okay, they're teenage. That's the first thing in their name. Let's make it about them being these frantic teenagers. And the good thing about the Turtles, in any variation of the Turtles, is they should be discovering the world because they've been in the sewers all their lives.
Yeah.
And so mix that with teenage, you know, Mutant Mayhem did such an amazing job.
Yeah.
And then they played around with all that, with the mutant side of things as well, and really kind of created some, you know, some fun ideas with the formula.
Yeah, you know, I really did like that show. I wouldn't say it's in my top 5 if I was really thinking about a top 5, which I won't go into now, obviously, but it wouldn't quite, but it would definitely be on the cusp, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But and that's one of the questions I want to ask, actually, and I will be asking this of every guest on the show. Where does this sit in your top 3 theme tunes?
Oh, theme tunes.
Yeah.
Oh man, I thought you were going to ask for like top 3 series.
I know, I went left field then.
You did. You went totally left field. Top three series. We had a big long chat about what to use here, and obviously I went for Turtles because it is ubiquitous with childhood. It was absolutely everywhere. Theme tunes. It's up there.
Yeah.
It's got to be up there, but it can't beat the greatest animated theme tune of all time. Wow.
So give me your top 3 if you can, because I know it is really difficult.
It moves around, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then I might even say that Turtles isn't even up there. I'm trying to put it at number 2. I might have to put it at listening back to it. You know, for the research. Listen to me research. Watching Turtles is research. Yeah, I've got a proper job.
Definitely.
Yeah.
100%.
But listening back to it, it took me back to there. It might be top 3, but it might be number 3 because
that's fair. That's fair.
I think when you're looking back at the shows, nothing will beat DuckTales. I'm really sorry. You can't.
Yeah.
You can have a go, but it's not gonna. It's not gonna be. It's not gonna be topped. I'm afraid.
Awesome.
DuckTales is number 1. There's no two ways about it. I could that fucking slaps. It's like
life is like a hurricane here in Duckburg. Race cars, lasers, aeroplanes. It's a duck blur.
Do you think you would know what your number 2 is? If Turtles is number 3 and DuckTales is number 1, what's number 2?
Would I go for? Would I go for something that, like, a show that I loved, like Inspector Gadget?
Right.
Would I go for Inspector Gadget? That it was that built that one, like, you know, built through sirens and then like do 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 do, and by the time you get into it, it's like, you know, you're like, yeah, go Gadget, go. Ninja Turtles is just like straight into it.
Yeah.
You know, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And it grabs you by the shoulders and shakes you and screams it in your face.
Did you know that the person who wrote the song itself and the lyrics was, I didn't know this until yesterday, was Chuck Lorre who the
Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, Big Bang Theory and Two and a Half Men. That blew my mind.
Yeah, and he's not made a penny out of it, but he's become like a squillionaire through the rest of it.
Through other things. Yeah.
So that wasn't the only golden egg, I suppose, of that. Yeah,
but that's amazing.
It's brilliant, isn't it? Yeah, but the theme tune for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is great. It is kind of like you say, it delivers the whole show. It's almost like the instruction manual before, you know, or you know what you're going to get, you know. And then you hear like edgier versions later on down the series when they're trying to kind of make it sound a bit edgy and gloomy. But it was perfect for the time. What could be my number 2 though? Could it be Duckula?
Ooh, class.
Could it be Duckula? Duckula is class. You know, people say, oh, you know, Danger Mouse is good, but it's it's classic. But
there's not much to it though. But the story is in Duckula theme tune.
Yeah. And it's oh wow, what a question. Knocked me for 6 there. I think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is there just for its oh god, now I've got Gummy Bears in my head as well. They're all coming flooding back.
Chip and Dale, you know, it's all there.
Chip and Dale. Chip and Dale.
It's that's one of the things I want to do with it. I know it's one of the things I want to do with this is sort of try and get at least the top 5, an overall top 5 of the best theme tunes. Because I would be throwing in things like Jamie and the Magic Torch, and Mask, and Will o' the Wisp, you know, stuff like that. It's just absolute bangers.
So a few earlier on in the year at the Cardiff Animation Festival, Squiggly did a nostalgia quiz version of because they had nostalgia as the theme. It was a great year, and we did a nostalgia version of the quiz, and my wife Jen and I we put together a playlist of the to play for people as they come in,
nice.
and this is it. We were just like thinking of shows and putting them in, and the Spotify, which we were using, doesn't have every original version of kids' TV themes, but they have like a kind of like somebody having a go at the kids' themes,
like the Boston Pops is a like version of Star Wars, and it's just not the same, and you can tell because you've listened to that theme tune so many times in your life, you know when it's not the right one. That was it, and it's and I think like we and Ben came and we were like, well, it sounds more like Temu Ninja Turtles rather than but yeah, I've got the list here of some of them, which I'm sure people will come back to, but obviously in fact on the list here at the top, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Excellent. That's what I started with. So we started there, then went on to DuckTales, Gummy Bears, Inspector Gadget, Denver the Last Dinosaur. Ah, yes.
Denver, he's your friend and a whole lot more. That was there. Animaniacs.
Going live.
Yeah. Chip and Dale, Darkwing Duck. Do you remember Darkwing Duck?
Yes, yeah.
That was brilliant. Like when Disney couldn't buy Batman, they were like, we'll just do our own with the Duck.
Yeah.
Fraggle Rock. Yeah, that's. I mean, it's not animated, obviously, but it'll do.
But that's on the list. There is.
They're all there. They're all there. It's just so many fantastic series out. You know, you can have. If you ask everybody that question, I think you're gonna send people in the same mental breakdown I've just had.
Awesome. That's if that's my job done. If that's all that comes to this podcast, and the fact that it's made people think about it as well,
Yeah.
And it just shows. It just shows that I think I could ask anybody that question, and I get almost the same reaction as you've just got,
Yeah.
And it just triggers those nostalgia pangs.
It does, yeah.
Because I just want to go and listen to the DuckTales theme tune, see if I remember.
Oh, yeah.
There's only, I love my theme tunes, but there's only one song. I love music. There's only one song that I know every word to, and that's Turtle Power by Partners in Crime. That is that's my karaoke tune, because I don't even need the teleprompter. That's the only one I know entire. And I love Guns N' Roses and Oasis, but I always struggle. But you can put Turtle Power on, and I can hit every word, and that's my party trick that I've never done for anybody.
I know we're going to do it now.
And thanks for coming in, Steve. I really the mic.
He's slinking back into the sewers like...
yeah. Back to the pizza. I think that's a really good place to wrap it up, actually, Steve. That's been brilliant.
As soon as I start asking you to start singing.
Yeah. People know me. They know that's how to shut me up.
Well, I'll have to get you on karaoke at next time you're up for Manchester Animation Festival.
I'll hit that, definitely.
Oh, thanks so much for having me on. It's been such a pleasure. I think you've got a really exciting journey ahead of you, kind of having people talking about these shows and things and revisiting their past. And I think you'll find out a lot about people. You'll find out more about the people than the shows, I'm sure.
Well, a massive thanks to Steve for that. I really appreciate him taking the time to do the first episode with us. Just a reminder that the Manchester Animation Festival takes place between the 9th and the 13th of November. And I'll put the links to the website for ticket registration, etc. in the comments. And hopefully you'll stick around and listen to the next episode. And a reminder that we'll be releasing new episodes every Monday. So hopefully you'll come and listen to more Square Window podcast. Cheers all.